Alright you guys, in today's video, I'm going to be going over the progress that I have made with my bubble tip anemone. When I first got it, it was super gray and looked really weak, didn't have good colors, and you could tell overall something was wrong. But in today's video, I'm going to be showing you guys all the progress that it's made. It looks a lot healthier, a lot better. Got most of its color back, and it ended up splitting, and both of the anemones are doing fine now, as you're going to see in this video. But I'm also going to go over, some of the growth that is still there to be had. So without further ado, guys, let's go ahead, let's get right into it. So as you guys can see right here, this is how the anemone is looking today, and it's not even looking its best right now. But just some quick background on the bubble tip anemone and kind of how I got it. So initially in this tank, I didn't want any anemones at all, and I'll actually show you a perfect reason why I didn't want any anemones in this tank. But let's go ahead and talk about how I ended up getting them. So basically, I wanted a little island of this xenia right here. As you can see, I got this little xenia colony, and it came in on this big rock, as you guys can see right here. Now, when I got it, I put it in the tank. I didn't notice that there was a tiny little skinny bubble tip anemone that looked like someone had no idea that it was there. And considering that when I bought this rock from my local fish store, that the workers had no idea that it was there. So that makes perfect sense of why when I first got it, it was looking like it had not been taken care of whatsoever. It looked terrible, and when I saw it moving around in my tank, I was definitely surprised. But I was like, you know what, I think that we can kind of revive this guy, and we'll get him looking a lot better. So far, that is what we did. And as you guys can see right here, this is the anemone today. And the clips that you guys have been seeing of it with it all gray and shriveled up was when I got it about 3 months ago. There was only one of them, and since then it's been eating a lot, and my clownfish have been loving it. They've been hosting it, and it's gained some of its green color back, so I imagine it's a green bubble tip anemone. And so far, yeah guys, I think the progress, it looks good, and the anemone split, and so now I have 2 of them, guys. Now let's talk about the things I did to kind of revive this anemone. And there's definitely some things that could still be worked on, but we're making progress, as you guys can tell, and it definitely looks a lot healthier now than it did on day 1. So the first thing I did was, and even here you can see, when I first got the anemone, it was like reaching for the light. Like it was super kind of strained out and just stretched out, reaching for the light. Kind of as you guys can see, my little mushrooms here are kind of stretched out. Same with the Duncan, and of course the anemone. Now the first thing I did was I changed my scape around a little bit, and I made them sit a little higher on this rock. Now the interesting thing about anemones is they'll actually move around to where they feel comfortable. And the interesting thing I was always kind of confused with is why wouldn't they move to a little higher of a spot? They never did, but I could tell they were reaching for the light. So I turned my light settings up a little bit more, and I kind of placed this rock a little bit higher in the tank and angled it a little higher so they're kind of sticking up, and that seemed to help a lot with the lighting side. So they could definitely use a stronger light. I think in the future I might experiment with a more expensive light, because the light I have right now is just like a $40 Amazon LED light, which, don't get me wrong, it's done great, but when I got this LED light, I wasn't expecting to get any anemones, but here we are. But so far, guys, it's revived them, and it's done a pretty good job, if I've had to say so myself. So yes, the first thing I did to help the anemone was move it to a higher spot and turn the lights up a little bit more. Now, if there's one thing I learned about the reefing hobby, is you don't want to change too much too fast. Now, obviously, once I turned the light up a little bit and I moved the anemones a little higher in the tank, I noticed that they weren't reaching so much for the light, and it was definitely making an impact. But like I said, nothing good happens fast in a reef tank, and the last thing you want to do is completely change everything for something that looks unhappy. So I kind of made that change. It was a minor change and didn't affect the other corals too much or the tank at all. So I was happy with the first change. I noticed some better results. So I figured, let's see if I could take a different angle at it and, see if I can make the anemones happy in another way without, changing too much of the tank, because I didn't want to unbalance too much. I just changed a little bit, and so that first change was positive. The second thing I did, guys, to help the anemone kind of regain its strength and regain its color, and I think this is the biggest one here, is I actually started target feeding the anemone. Now, what does that mean? Target feeding means that you basically directly target feed the mouth of the anemone. So the anemones have a mouth in the middle of their body, and what I would do is I would just take some of the fish food that I was feeding, literally just some of the flakes that I was feeding or the pellets, I'd get them wet so they'd sink, and I would take some tweezers and just drop them into the mouth of the anemone. And I'll show you guys exactly what I did. As you guys can see, I have flake food, just what the fish eat, on some tweezers, and I'll go ahead and I'll drop it in here. I'm trying to do it with one hand. Let me get a good shot of that, and as you can see, I just drop some in. The anemone on the right gets some, and obviously when I have both hands, it's a lot easier, and the anemone on the left gets some, or that's the anemone on the right, sorry, the anemone on the right and left gets some, and that's kind of how they get target fed. As you guys can see, they close up there on the food. Might have fed them a little too much, because I was trying to look through the lens and keep a steady hand, so that's my excuse. Usually I'm a little bit more precise, but yeah, that's pretty much how I've been doing it, but I would like to do some frozen food in the future. As you guys can see, the other fish are going crazy for the food, so I'm gonna go ahead, don't worry, I'll feed the rest of them right now. This is just a couple seconds later. As you can see, the anemone on the right is fully closed up. It fully took in that food. You can see the anemone on the left here is closed up as well. The clownfish sometimes try to take the food out of the anemone, same with this shrimp here. So I try to like overfeed the anemone a little bit, because I know that some of that food is gonna be taken out of the anemone. But that's basically what I've been doing, and it's been working. It's been doing good. Now, I have never ever target feeded this tank, and I know target feeding the tank definitely adds a lot more nutrients in the tank, and I noticed a lot more algae buildup, but the anemone was looking way better, and in my opinion, it was well worth it. And even now you can see I'm getting a little bit of a diatom bloom. It looks like the tank's kind of getting thrown out of balance a little bit, but that was because I over doubled my livestock. Recently in the last few videos, if you've been watching, the original livestock for years in this tank was just my one clownfish and my one yellow watchman goby. And recently we added a second clownfish and a firefish, and as well as this little peppermint shrimp over here. There he is. That is taking care of my aptasia, or it did take care of my aptasia all in one day. You can check out that video too if you haven't seen that. It's the previous video. But anyway, that's besides the point. So just feeding a little heavier for this tank. I only fed 3 times a week, or I only feed this tank 3 times a week, and I would target feed the anemone about 2 of those 3 times, just so I got a little extra nutrients from the light. And basically it got to the point that for where you see it now. But now, you guys, let me get to the point of why I say that I didn't want a bubble tip anemone in my tank in the first place. And it's kind of a perfect example of what's going on right now. So, I mean, I guess one of the side reasons was, or you know what, I'll go with the main reason first. The main reason being I wanted this tank to have a bunch of LPS. So like the Duncan, the Torch, the Hammer, and the frog spawn corals. I absolutely love the way those corals look. And the anemones, you know, they move around and they could sting those corals. And, you know, I know that LPS can kind of sting each other anyway, like the torch coral, but, you know, it's just an extra added kind of hassle. You also have to worry about the anemone kind of, you know, if it gets too weak, it'll let go of the rock and it could drift into your power head. So it's always good to have a power head guard. As you can see, I've been living on the edge without having a power head guard. I should get one soon. So that was one reason, but another reason too is your clownfish, they can host other corals as well other than your anemone. So, and the perfect example of this is this guy right here with this Duncan. Now, I don't know if you guys were able to see during the video, but these Duncan, they look kind of mad. They're closed right now, and over the last couple of weeks, my new clownfish, my little clownfish right here, has been hosting my Duncan coral. Now, some of you guys might not see that as a problem, but the only thing that kind of like is unfortunate is the Duncan does get annoyed by it, and it'll kind of close up and look how it does now without the polyp heads like fully open. It kind of annoys them, and I've seen videos of this before, and it'll do it. Clownfish will host torch corals and stuff, and it'll kind of annoy the corals, and they won't come out as much. Now, it's not like the biggest deal in the world, but it's kind of a bummer. And, you know, there's 2 anemones. I just wish they both would host the anemones. But what I think happened was the small clownfish saw my big clownfish hosting the anemones, and then he went ahead and just started hosting the Duncan, and now the Duncan is a little angry, and it's closing up a little bit. So, you know, I haven't seen any huge health problems with the Duncan being hosted. I just noticed that it's closed up a little bit more throughout the day when I come and look at it. And as you guys know, I absolutely love the Duncan. It's like one of my most favorite corals that I have in here because when it's open, it looks absolutely amazing. But yeah, that was just another reason why I didn't want the anemones, just because, you know, it can kind of entice the behavior of hosting. And I realized the clownfish probably, even without the anemones in here, there's always a chance that they could host any of these corals. But I think just with the anemones in here, and it happened to me, you know, it's more of a chance that the clowns will host, you know, other corals other than the anemone, such as you can see, the Duncan here, thus being the result, the Duncan isn't very happy. So yeah, that was kind of a long roundabout way of why I didn't initially want anemones. But, you know, it's not all doom and gloom. Like, I love the anemones and I love the relationship they have with clownfish. It's one of the coolest and most rewarding relationships to watch in the hobby, and it's super cool. So, you know, I don't regret, you know, this anemone coming in off this rock, and it's been a fun journey to kind of get it back to health. But there's definitely been some pros, and there's definitely been some cons with it as well. One other quick point I'd like to make about the anemones is sometimes it will have bubble tips and sometimes it won't, and I really don't know why. Like, it would almost change by the hour. Some hours it would have the bubbles, and sometimes it would kind of string out like this. Now, obviously, I think the bubble look is cooler, personally, but, you know, I don't mind either way. They both look cool, but if any of you guys have any reason why sometimes they would switch from having bubbles to no bubbles throughout the day, make sure to put that in the comment section down below, because I have no idea. But I literally have video footage of like 1 hour, it'll have the bubbles, and the other hour it won't. So that's just, I find that kind of interesting. But guys, in summary, the anemone has came a long way, but I still think it has a long way to go. I still think, you know, this can grow a lot more and it can get a lot more color. So I will keep you guys updated on the anemones as they continue to get better. What I plan to do is maybe go from feeding flake and pellet food to maybe feeding more of like more meaty foods, like frozen food. I know that they absolutely love frozen food, as well as I'd love to upgrade my light. So maybe I can make those 2 adjustments, and then in the next update, we'll see how it's doing from this point on. But if you guys enjoyed this video, make sure to hit that like button. And if you didn't enjoy the video, feel free to let me know why in the comment section down below, because I'd always love to improve these videos for you guys. But thank you guys for stopping by, spending some time with me, looking at my fish tank, and I'll see you guys next time. Take it easy, guys. Peace out.